Okay, well, good morning and welcome to AP1. This is Biology 2010, Section A12. And I'm Dr. Sproat. I'm glad to have you all here. I hope I don't bore you too much this morning with all the introductory material we go through, but it'll get better. I can definitely promise that. So this is AP1. We are meeting today. You are likely interested in some healthcare program. Maybe it's nursing, PT, PTA, radiography, search tech. There's a wide variety, respiratory therapy. There's a wide variety of programs you can go into. This is the class to be in. Classes that are the basis of admission are going to be AP1 and 2, and then probably micro as sort of like the icing on the cake, if you will. I've had real good success over the years with students that have done well in these classes of mine, getting into various programs. So if your goal is to get into healthcare, then do well in this class and you have no trouble getting into one of the programs. I've had lots and lots of nurses get through my classes. I've had many people in radiography, pre-imaging come through. In fact, at the ETSU local campus, 3 out of 4 of the 4 students that they have at this campus were all mine. And I've, in the past 3 or 4 years, 2 out of 3, there aren't that many over there, but the majority were mine. Now at Johnson City, I've sent a lot to Johnson City. So if you're looking to go into surge tech or radiography or any of these fields, then this is the class to have. Now I will tell you that this class expects a lot out of you. You need to do well. You need to get an A or a B in this class, preferably an A. I know the catalog says that a C is acceptable. Yes, a C is acceptable, but I don't know if it's ever gotten into the nursing program, for example, at this campus. In Walter State, there's a C in nursing, C in A&P. Just saying it. Even though it's acceptable, doesn't mean we're going to get in. It doesn't mean you can't get in somewhere else. It just means it's very competitive. Anyway, enough of that. But if your goal is to go into healthcare, just do well in the class. And having said that, I think that I've given you all the tools that you're going to need to succeed in this class. This is we've tried to make it as convenient for you as possible. Obviously meeting online works out well. Meeting live like this works out well for a lot of people. Your textbook, for example, your textbook is an online ebook called Anatomy and Physiology. Clever name for an A&P class book. It's from OpenStax is the site. It's run by Rice University. So it's a legitimate source. The book is free. You can go to it at any time. You can download it and print it out as a PDF. Of course, probably blow through 700 pages of paper to do so, but that's your prerogative. You can buy it brand new on Amazon for $50, or you can just print out the chapters you need as we go through. I would recommend it if you don't want to do that. Go to McKay's in Knoxville, or go to Amazon and get a good used A&P book. McKay's has plenty of them for about $10. The nice thing about anatomy books is it doesn't matter who the author is, they all tend to follow the same format. They all say the same things. The only reason that there are new additions is because they changed the names of some structures, and there may be more technology, more advancements on something or other, which we would cover in lecture anyway. Even if you get the OpenStax book, I recommend you pick up a hard copy textbook. It's nice to have that resource available to you. And you know, one thing you'll see, the further, if you're going into healthcare, the further along you go, the more material you're going to end up carrying around with you, whether it's on tablets or phones or even small pocket manuals. I've seen lots of healthcare professionals have their lab coats loaded up with electronic and hard copy information, because there's so much to know that you can't keep it all straight sometimes. And sometimes it's nice just to have a textbook floating around. It took me years, though I will tell you, it took me years to eventually get rid of my general chemistry textbook from my freshman year. So I don't know why I kept that thing. Anyway, so textbook, it's free. Textbook is free. If you go with eLearn, with the ebook through OpenStax, it's free. Because we got, as a division, our A&P faculty got tired of having students pay $300 for a textbook. So even if you buy the one from Amazon for $50, that's still a bargain, because you'll use it for 2 semesters. Plus, there is no lab book. All the lab content is found in eLearn. Now, in eLearn, you're going to see we have PowerPoints. I have PDF files that are printouts available of the PowerPoints. I have 4 slides to a page. You'll have videos that are useful to look at on whatever topic that we are talking about. You'll have study guides for each exam. I would highly recommend following those study guides. That's a really good way to prepare for the test. It's not the only way, but it's a good start. You'll have the syllabus. Syllabus is very important. The syllabus is a contract between you and me. It outlines what we're going to cover, what we're not going to cover in the class. I can't change the rules on you halfway through the course and say, oh, we're going to have 10 tests now instead of 6. So that doesn't work that way. I have to follow the rules. You have to follow the rules. So the contract, this contract protects both of us. If we were in class, I would sit down with the syllabus and highlight the key points there, but you can go through and look at it yourself. I do know some faculty that actually sit down and read it word for word for their class. So anyway, so all this is contained in eLearn for you. So a couple of the highlights. Well, you know, always come to class, always open up your class with, you know, I'd print out my PDF file and have that available to take notes on, because a lot of, you know, while you'll see this, the PowerPoints on screen, a lot of what I talk about is not on the PowerPoint slide itself. So the course has 5 lecture exams. Each lecture exam is worth 100 points. They're usually 50 questions in length. They're going to be multiple choice. They're all given online using the lockdown browser. The lockdown browser will not work with a Chromebook, so you don't go to take the test and then discover that it's not working because you have a Chromebook. Not a big deal. Use a computer. Find a computer. Come to the library on campus and use a computer there if you need to. But it won't work with a Chromebook. I don't know why. So we have 5 lecture exams. Each exam will take place after we finish a unit. The first unit is chapters 1 and 2, which is the introductory unit plus the chapter on chemistry. And whenever we finish chapter 2, then we will, schedule the exam. The way I do it is the exam will usually open up for 10 days. It'll be timed as an hour, and you'll have an hour actually is a very adequate amount of time for 50 questions, because many of the questions will just breeze right through. The exams are all multiple choice. They're all randomized. The questions are all different for everybody's exam. I have a test bank of about 400 questions, and everybody gets a randomized test thanks to eLearn. And then within the test, the questions are randomized. The answers are randomized. So while you may get this exact same question as somebody else does, and you may be sharing questions, the answers, the order of the answers are going to be different. So, and so so I'll give you probably a 10-day window to take your exam. Don't wait till the end of the window to do it, because in lecture we'll go on. As soon as we finish one unit, we'll start another one. And so the next test, the test after that, will be based on cells and metabolism. And then the third test will be on muscles and bones. And then the fourth test will be on half the nervous system. And the last test will be on the other half of the nervous system. And then we have a final exam. There's a comprehensive final exam that's given during the exam. The way I do it is I usually take the day that the test is scheduled, because I think that we would have been scheduled for 10 o'clock on Thursday of exam, whatever. What I do is I open up the exam at 12:01 a.m. of the day of the exam and leave it open for 24 hours. And you have a timed 2 hours to take the exam. And then you're done. And that's where we go. So we have 600 possible points in the class. Very straightforward. 90% of 600 is 540, and that's 540 and above is an A. I will tell you that I will round up if you are, like, for example, if you are at 89.5, your percent is 89.5. I will round you up to the 90. So I will always try to round up when I can. I can't round up if it's 87 or 88. And even at 89 point nothing, I find it's hard to round up. But if you're at 0.5 or even 40, something like that, give me something to work with, and I'll do the best I can to help you within limits. So I try. I want you to succeed. I'm not going to break any rules, but I do want you to succeed. So I will give you the benefit whenever I can. Now, final exam. Again, 100 questions, 100 points. I think it's like a 2-hour window to take it or whatever. So you'll have all day availability on exam day. And if you have an issue on exam day, which has happened, there's something, if you have something else scheduled that day or during that, just let me know. I'm flexible. Some people have had to leave the course, couldn't take it on exam day. They had something else going on in their lives. Let me know. I can let you take it earlier. As far as exams go and things like that, or class attendance, things are going to happen in your life. All sorts of things. I'm not surprised anymore what happens to people. I've seen, I've been doing this. This is my 18th year at Walter State teaching anatomy, and I have seen just about everything that can take place. So nothing surprises me, because I know things are going to happen. Kids are going to get sick. Parents are going to get sick. You're going to get sick. Cars are going to die. People are going to have accidents. We're going to have snow and rain and floods and pandemics that we didn't anticipate. You know, just because it's 90 degrees outside now doesn't mean it's not going to snow in November and take down the power lines and take down our Wi-Fi. So things will happen. We can work around those. If you know that you're going to have to miss a class, you're going to have to, you know, if you let me know, just shoot me an email. I have the lectures are recorded and they're placed in YouTube. I try to do them every day so that you can go back and watch it again. If you missed the class, it's okay. You know, don't make a habit of it, but I mean, things are going to happen. And so you can watch the lecture on YouTube and get caught up. Just that's the nature of life and getting in the way of things. So we know, you know, all sorts of things happen. So, and like I said, I'm very reasonable. I'll work with you on anything. You know, just try to give me a heads up whenever you can, or at least after the fact. So, let's see what else. Oh, things like Wi-Fi dying. That happens too. You know, if your Wi-Fi dies in the middle of the test, I can see it. You know, shoot me an email, tell me what happened after you get your Wi-Fi back. Tell me what happened. I can go in and look and say, yep, you got through the first 20 questions, then everything stopped. You know, usually it'll give me a flag and say that you're on your 25th hour of taking that exam. Interesting. You're only in question 20. So barring any kind of mental block, I think that you probably had a problem with your computer. I can reset the exam. You get a different exam, but you can continue taking. So there isn't much I can't fix for you too. So let's see what else. If you need to meet with me, we can do a Zoom meeting. If you want to meet in person, I can be on campus in Sevierville. It's whatever is convenient for you. I'm going to try and arrange to have the, if you are on the Sevierville campus, I'm going to try and arrange to have the lecture classroom, which is also the lab classroom, open. And we can have various models like muscles and bones and organs for you to look at. If you are on campus for other classes, if you want to come in and take a look at anything that we're talking about in lecture or lab, I'm going to try to have them out. Labs all meet through Zoom, so we're not going to be on campus for lab, but a lot of the things like bones and muscles, it's gives you a better appreciation to go handle some bones when you're prepping for your bone test, for example, in lab, or your muscle test. Let's see, what else? Do we have any questions? Yes, the free textbook is an OpenStack. It's the anatomy and physiology text. I had someone in the previous class just purchased it from Amazon. That's how I know it was $50. So she told me she just spent $50 on it. So, but you can download it for free if you want to. It's a good book. It follows the same pattern at organization as all the other A&P books do. Almost, I don't want to say word for word, but A&P books tend to start out with the introductory chapter, then they go to the chemistry chapter, then they go to the cells chapter, and then they go into, we do it a little differently because we jump up to metabolism, which is usually in chapter 24 in a lot of books. And then we come back and we do bones and muscles, and those are like six, 7, or 8, or 9. Those are the chapters in there. So the sequence, though, in most A&P books are identical. So it's not going to hurt to have a different book And there's only so many ways to say the same information. Most textbooks sound alike too. So, comments, questions, anything? Let's see, is there anything I'm forgetting? Well, if it comes to me, I'll tell you. Okay, so I want to go ahead and open up the lecture in here. And like I said, the lectures are recorded. I'm trying something different this semester. I erased all my old videos, so that recordings I put in there, and I'm trying to keep these. I used to have them, open for everybody to see, but I'm trying now just to send you the links to these videos so that only you can see your video, because I guess sort of the privacy issues involved here. We'll see how that goes. If that becomes tedious, we'll rethink the whole how I want to do it. So, but they're all going to be available for you to view. Okay, I want to go into this and see if I can. Okay, everybody should see the slide that says Chapter 1, Introduction to the Human Body. Everybody see that? Okay, good. You would not believe how many times in the past where I thought I had the slide up and I start talking, and about 3 slides into it, someone says, we can't see the slides. So don't be shy. Don't be shy. Okay. Okay, so we're talking about the organization of the human body. And the human body is a very complex structure, and it has very specific terms that we use to describe it. And the reason we do that is not to sound intelligent, or, as I like to say, more smarter than other people. It's because if we use the same terminology, we're consistent. Up and down don't have the same meaning in the human body as they do for other things. Left and right can be confusing because in the human body, it's all about perspective. What appears to be when I say my left, appears to you as being on my right, if we were in the classroom. So we have to have a very specific terminology in describing body parts and locations. So if you have a patient that says they have a pain in their belly, well, that can be a whole lot of things. Depending, but we want to know where, what region of the abdomen is it located in? Because it means a whole lot of different things depending on where the pain is. So we want to be precise. One of my favorite old horror movies was the original Frankenstein. And what is a very subtle point here, that I use to emphasize communication, is you'll notice that Dr. Frankenstein turns around and he announces, it's alive. He doesn't say he's alive. He announces it's alive, because it is a creation that he is pieced together. And so to him, it's an it, which is technically correct. So even in this movie, which is a bit of a stretch, here, it's alive. That is the precise terminology. It doesn't say he, which Boris Karloff probably didn't appreciate at all, but that's beside the point. Anyway, terminology is very important. Now, when we're dealing with terminology, let's start at the beginning and look at anatomy. Anatomy is the study of the structure. How do the parts, parts is parts. We've got arms and legs and fingers and toes and bones and muscles. How do they fit together? How do they interact together? Why are our bones built the way they are? Why do we have a long bone at our shoulder that goes down to our elbow? Our upper arm bone is one bone, but our forearm has two bones. And why are they flexible enough to let us turn our hand? Why is our leg designed the same way? Why do we have two bones in our lower leg and only one large bone in our upper leg? How do these bones and muscles all fit together? How do structures fit together? Physiology is how do these things work? Physiology is the study of how they work together. What causes a muscle to contract? We have a leg muscle. How's it contract? What needs to happen? We are electrical. We are electrically charged, and we use nerve impulses to tell our muscles to do things. Well, where do the nerve impulses come from? How does the muscle respond to that stimulus? That is the physiology. What does it do to work? Is it a chemical reaction? Is it an electrical reaction? Is it a pressure change? What causes it to work? And how does the anatomy, the actual physical structure of the heart, the bone, the muscle, the lung, whatever, how does that tie it together as physiology? We take a look at our anatomy. We're going to start out on the gross anatomy, or more precisely, what we call the macroscopic anatomy, surface anatomy, for example. We look at our skin. We look at our arms or our legs. We can tell a lot about our, based on appearance. We're looking at, are we swollen? Are we have a swollen leg? Do we have a visible bruise? Do we have penetrating bone sticking through? Macroscopic anatomy may be whole body, it may be regional. Have you ever told someone that they don't look well, or someone says to you, you look tired, or you look like you're getting sick, when you're tired and you're worn out. So that's a macroscopic view. Many healthcare providers become trained on assessing their patients simply by observing them. Observation is a big deal. Just looking at your patient and say, I think this is what's going on here, before you even start, without jumping to any kind of conclusions, you start looking at making an assessment based on appearance. It's always a start. But don't close your mind on it. Don't close your mind. Appearances are important, but may often lead you down the wrong pathway. You need to keep a very open mind. So, microscopic anatomy. We use a microscope, obviously. Now, there's two categories of microscopic anatomy. We are looking internally now. We're looking at this down at the cellular level, not just inside the body, but looking inside the individual tissues to look at the cells. Cytology is the study of the cells. Are you looking at a healthy cell, or are you looking at a cell with cancer? Is it a cancer cell? And how can you tell the difference? Well, when you look at cancer cells and healthy cells side by side, you can very clearly see the difference. And we'll get into that later, particularly in AP2. But the study of the cells tells you what's going on. Circle that on your printout, a little star, because that may come back to haunt you if you don't remember it. The same with histology. Histology is the study of tissues. And so we look at tissues, which are collections of cells. And tissues instead of looking at one cell, we're looking at lots of cells. Perhaps you're looking at a slide of our airway, the trachea, and you're looking at little structures on the airway, that are designed to trap dust and dirt particles. Perhaps you're looking at, the light and dark areas of muscle, and give it, make it look like it has light and dark bands in here. That's again, that's histology. That is the study of the tissues. Physiology, the function aspect, is based on the various organs. Consider this. Look at the picture of the heart there, the heart that's beating here in the upper corner of the illustration here. So there is a heart showing the valves opening and shutting and the chambers contracting. And so if you were going to design a device to pump blood in the body, and you had to send it to the lungs, and you had to send it out to the whole body circulation, and the same amount of blood that you sent to the lungs was the amount you would also be sending at the same time to the body. Because while this side of the heart's pumping blood to the lungs, this side is pumping to the body. The amount going out on the right side has got to be the same on the left side. So we have this little organ about the size of your fist with two chambers on the right-hand side, an upper chamber up here, a receiving chamber, and a pumping chamber here. Receiving chamber collects blood from the body, transfers it to the pumping chamber here, and sends it out through this valve to the lungs, where it fills up with oxygen. That comes back to this receiving chamber over here, comes down into this pumping chamber, goes out through a valve that's tucked up underneath there, and is sent out to the body. When it goes to the body, it goes out and comes around again back in here. Okay. This simple little structure, no bigger than your fist, sitting in the middle of your chest, will contract, will pump every 7/10 of a second. And over half of that 7/10 of a second, the heart's setting in rest. It's not pumping, it's reloading. And so it's sending, at the same time, it's sending blood to the lungs, it's sending blood that's been fully oxygenated, picking up oxygen from the lungs to the body. The structure determines its function. And the physiology here is, how is it doing that? Electrical charges running through the heart stimulate both sides of the heart to contract at the same time and pump blood at the exact same time, every time. We don't want them out of phase. We want the same amount of blood going to the lungs as going to the body. And that's what we do. And a healthy heart will do this every 7/10 of a second for 100 years, 110 years. So over and over and over again. Here we see the brain. We see areas of the brain highlighting as nerve impulses travel through the brain. What causes those nerve impulses? Well, there are chemical changes inside the cells that allow these nerve impulses to move and they carry a charge. We are electrically charged. Somewhere between -70 and -90 millivolts is the charge on our bodies. And that allows things to work. You can take a voltmeter and stick it in your skin. Theoretically, you stuck it in deep enough, and you could register the charge on our cells. Here we see a very elegant little structure, which seems pretty simple. This is a person swallowing something. Food or water comes in, and we swallow it. Okay. Well, two things had to happen right away. The tongue had to force the food to the back of the oral cavity, which is going back here. The second thing that has to happen at the same time is the airway, which is this tube here, the trachea, has to close. Then the esophagus, which is this structure here, has to open up to allow, you'll notice this black substance here, whatever it is, has to go through through the esophagus. The esophagus will open up briefly, allow it to come through, and then will close behind it. And then the airway can open up again. All this has to happen in that sequence. And it's an elegant little dance so that we don't get things mixed up. How do we control that? We don't have to stop and think about it. It does it for us. If you're looking at physiology, you have to pay attention to chemistry. You have to pay attention to electricity, air pressure. You have to understand the principles of the chemical principles at work here. For example, after exercise, we breathe faster. You climb 2 flights of stairs. You run up 2 flights of stairs, and you might be breathing a little faster at the top of the stairs. Now, most people would say that you're breathing faster because you need more oxygen. But the truth is, you're breathing faster because you are generating more carbon dioxide. When we burn sugars for energy, or we oxidize sugars, another nicer way of saying burning it. When we oxidize sugar for energy, we give off carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide goes into our plasma, our blood. And from there, it combines with water in our blood to form an acid called carbonic acid. Carbonic acid lowers our blood pH. Our blood gets more acidic. You don't understand acids and bases now. So our blood gets more acidic. Our brain, which is monitoring our acid base levels, detects, my blood is more acidic. I must breathe faster. It doesn't have to monitor CO2 levels. It just says, hey, I'm getting more acidic. I got to breathe faster. And most of the time, that's correct. So when we exercise and we breathe faster after exercise, it's not to get more oxygen, because we've got plenty of oxygen. We've got more than enough oxygen. We don't need more oxygen immediately. But when we exercise, we generate CO2, and that triggers our brain to breathe faster, not to get more oxygen, but to blow off the extra CO2, which is why we breathe faster. It's just a nice benefit that we're picking up more oxygen. But the reason we breathe faster is to blow off the excess carbon dioxide. You gotta understand it's a chemical process. So you get a patient that presents in the emergency room and they're breathing rapidly. What's going on? Well, one of the first things that runs through your mind is, why are they breathing rapidly? Are they, having a problem getting rid of are they accumulating carbon dioxide? Do they have an obstruction in their airway? What's going on? So that's the basis of where you start thinking here. So you got a whole lot of chemistry, chemical and electrical and pressure changes. I mean, breathing, the whole process of breathing is based on pressure changes in the lungs. That's what it's all about. Consider pressure changes. Consider a balloon. You squeeze a balloon, then you tie it off the balloon, you squeeze it. What happens? As you shrink the balloon, it bulges out on one side or another and gets closer and closer to popping. Pressure rises. So we'll talk a lot about that when we get into respiration in AP2. Okay, so we're looking at terminology. We got to be able to know what regions of the body we're talking about. We have to know left from right, up and down, front and back, but we have to know it with the precise terminology so that we always say the right word that means the same to everybody. You can go anywhere in the world and talk about the dorsal surface of the body, and they'll know you're talking about the back. The ventral surface, you'll know you're talking about the front, the abdomen region, for example. So instead of saying, front and back, left and right, because the perspectives all change. Anatomy and physiology, regardless of the perspective, are inseparable. Function reflects the structure. The structure of the heart is based on its function. You need a 4-chamber heart. 2 chambers to receive, 2 chambers to pump. That's what the heart looks like. The lungs have to be a big sack of millions of cells that are paper thin. I like to compare inside of the lungs to single ply wet toilet paper, and that's even probably too thick. But that structure is so thin that it would allow the movement of gases. Oxygen can go into the blood vessels, and CO2 can leave the blood vessels and go into the lungs, because the membranes of the cells inside the lungs are so thin that anything can pass through. The structure, if you want to exchange gases, you want a very, very thin membrane. And that's what you got. If your function is gas exchange, your structure better be thin enough to allow gases to pass across. Now, this is one of our pyramid structures, not a pyramid scheme, but a pyramid structure for organization in the body. And it's just pretty straightforward. We start out with very tiny structures here called atoms: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. They come together to form molecules, which we use to make tissues and make cells, and then tissues here, and then tissues come together to help make organs, and organs come together for organ systems, and pretty soon we have an organism. That's us. So we start at the chemical level, we go to the cellular level, then the tissue level. Tissues are clusters of cells together. They can be similar cells, like skeletal muscle. We refer to skeletal muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle is muscle that we control. We also call it voluntary muscle. And all the skeletal muscle, like in our arms and legs, for example, it all looks the same. Same types of tissues. At the organ level, we have 2 or more types of tissues. We may have muscle tissue and nervous tissue. We may have muscle tissue and nervous tissue, what we call connective tissue, which is sort of the filler and wraparound tissue. At the organ system level, we have various organs that work together. The cardiovascular system, for example, is the heart and the blood vessels, the arteries, the veins, and capillaries. That's an organ system. The respiratory system are the lungs and the trachea and the nasal cavity and the oral cavity and the bronchi all together to allow us to breathe. Those are organ systems. And then you put all these systems together and we have the organism that would be us. Now, the organ systems in the body, we have 11 distinct organ systems. The biggest is the integumentary system, or the skin. Our skin consists of our skin covering plus our sweat glands and our oil glands and our hair and our fingernails and our toenails. They are the outer covering of our body. They protect us from pathogens. Pathogens are disease-causing agents. They can be bacteria, they can be funguses, they can be viruses. Bacteria and funguses are alive, viruses are not. Viruses are nothing more than a strand of DNA wrapped around a coat of protein, with a coat of protein wrapped around it. And the sole purpose of a virus is to infect a cell, take over the DNA, and make more copies of the virus. The virus is not alive. It is programmed just to make copies of itself. And when the cell's packed full of these viral particles, it ruptures and spews forth all these little viral particles, and they go and infect other cells. And usually when the cell ruptures is when we start feeling, as I say, symptomatic. We start having symptoms. That's all a virus wants to do, is make copies of itself. It's not alive. We can't kill the virus because it's not alive. We can destroy the virus. We can break the virus apart. We can't kill it because there's nothing to kill. So we just, it's easier to say, well, we're going to kill the virus than it is to try to, argue the semantics there of yes or no. But just bear in mind that a virus is not a living structure. It's not a living organism. It's only a strand of protein and DNA or RNA. But our tissues, our skin protects us against all this stuff. It protects us from bacteria and funguses and viruses. Those things, those pathogens, we don't say germs anymore. We say pathogens, disease-causing agents. We cannot get infected through our skin from surface contamination. You can put your hand down on the countertop loaded with bacteria. Not going to make you sick. You're not going to be symptomatic unless you lick your finger or stick your finger up your nose or rub your eye or touch your mouth. Well, we can do all that stuff. But when we're in the classroom and I say that, and I say in the past 5 minutes I've seen a half a dozen people touch their eye, great route of entry for bacteria, or rub their mouth or rub their nose. So that's how it gets in. The pathogens can't get through our skin, but they can get into our mouth. They can get into our nose. They can get into our eyes, or any other opening, which we will talk about right now anyway. So the point is that our skin does protect us, but there are plenty of ways for, you drink after somebody, you kiss somebody, you shake hands with somebody, they sneeze on you, you sneeze on them, you cough on them. We spread viral particles, we spread droplets in the air with bacteria or other pathogens on them, and we inhale them. We may or may not develop an infection, but that's how the pathogens get to work around the barrier of the skin. The skin also helps keep us warm or keep us cool. We reduce blood flow to the skin so we don't lose body heat, or we send a lot of heat to the skin on a hot day. We sweat to cool down. We keep our skin good and lubricated. We protect the underlying tissues with our skin. In the abdominal cavity, the area below the ribs, we have no bony protections. We get all the way down to our pelvis. So all the internal organs below the diaphragm are wide open. The liver, the spleen, the gallbladder, the stomach, the small and large intestine, they have no protection whatsoever. And our skin generates and produces vitamin D. Sunlight, it's a very simple process. Sunlight on our skin activates the production of vitamin D. That's all it takes. Ultraviolet radiation triggers vitamin D production. Vitamin D is absolutely essential for us to absorb calcium in our diet. Now, why is that important? Well, we need calcium, obviously, for our bones, but also for muscle contractions. Muscle contractions depend heavily on a lot of calcium. Nerve impulses depend on calcium, not to a great extent. And of course, our bones depend on calcium for strength. And as we age, if we have less and less calcium being deposited in our bones get weaker. This is a real issue for some postmenopausal females. Why postmenopausal? because after menopause, the female's ovaries shut down. The ovaries are the source of estrogen, the female sex hormone. Estrogen stimulates bone growth. Without estrogen, we don't replace the bone that's being worn away, because our bodies tend to look at our bones as a great big source of calcium and have no qualms about raiding the bones to get the calcium we need for other areas. In a postmenopausal female who is not building her bone back up, she may, this doesn't happen to every postmenopausal female, but some develop osteoporosis. The bones get weaker and weaker thanks to a lack of estrogen and a lack of calcium. It's raiding the bones to get the calcium that she needs for other things. We'll talk a lot about that in the bone chapter. Now, the bones themselves, the skeletal system, the bones take advantage of the muscles because muscles aren't strong enough to do their job by themselves. So they use the bones as levers to amplify their strength. Bones are made of calcium and cartilage and ligaments. Bones are living tissue. They are living cells. We tend to think of them as not, because we only ever see them as dried skeletons or models of skeletons. But bones are living tissue. And they are designed to interact with other bones. They support the organs. They protect our brain and our spinal cord, the most protected areas of our body. They provide a framework for the muscles to attach to so that we can move. They also make blood cells. All of our blood cells come out of the marrow of our bones. Our bones, the red bone marrow, makes all 7 different types of blood cells. All 7 different types of blood cells come out of our bones. So, and of course, we store calcium and phosphorus. 99% of the calcium and phosphorus in our bodies are found in our bones. Muscles are made up of muscle cells and tendons. Tendons are connective tissue. Muscles don't attach directly to bones. They attach to tendons, and then tendons attach to the bone. Muscles provide they generate our body heat. When we break down sugars for energy, 60% of that energy that's released comes off as body heat. That gives us our nice constant 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 Fahrenheit body temperature, thanks to this heat coming off. We can move, we can pump blood, we can walk, we can talk, we can swallow. We can process food through our digestive system. We can squeeze blood vessels when we need to and relax when we need to. We can open our airway and close our airway. That's movement. We can show expressiveness in our face using the very thin muscles that are directly underneath our skin. If you touch your forehead, you're rubbing, you can feel the frontal bone there. Right between the skin and the frontal bone is a muscle called the frontalis. It's a very thin muscle. It's there to show expression, just like most of the facial bones are. We show if we're happy, if we're sad, if we're annoyed, if we're irritated, if we're angry. We show expressiveness in our face with these muscles. Very few facial muscles do a whole lot for us other than expression. And muscles help hold us upright and maintain our body's posture. Our nervous system, the #1 control system in the body. We respond to change internally and externally. We respond to a stimulus, a noise, a light, an odor, a taste, a pain, a touch, a vibration, pressure, chemical changes. We respond to all this instantly. Nerve impulses travel up to 300 miles an hour in our bodies. The longest nerve in our body is only 3 to 4 feet long in length. It runs from our hip down to our big toe behind our knee. It's called the sciatic nerve, and it's about the size and thickness of your thumb. Big nerve, 3 feet long, 4 feet long. Nerve impulses travel down that nerve at 300 miles an hour. Now, can you tell when the nerve impulse starts and when it gets there? No, to us it's instantaneous. So, the slowest nerve impulses in our body travel only 100 miles an hour, but they only have to go like an eighth of an inch. So they don't have to go very far. So again, it's instantaneous. We have, the nervous system consists of the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves leading into and coming out of the brain and spinal cord. We respond to stimulus. We react. We make decisions. We think. We talk. We walk. Someone calls your name. You turn your head in the direction of that name, whether it's you they're calling it or somebody else. You turn your head in the direction of a sound or a bright light. You detect an odor. You detect motion. All these things. You react to it. You react to pain. You put your hand down to something sharp or hot. You put your hand back. You step on a Lego on the floor in the middle of the night. And you react. Or worse, you step on something squishy and warm on the floor in the middle of the night. My wife and I are past the Legos on the floor stage. Now we just have dogs. But we react. It is our fast control system. It is the rapid control system. It's not the only control system we have, but it is the instantaneous control system. At least it appears instantaneous to us because we can't discern the time frame for something that travels 300 miles an hour and only goes 3 feet. Cardiovascular system, heart and blood vessels. We pump blood, we send it out to the lungs and bring it back to the heart and pump it to the body and bring it back to the heart. We transport blood through the blood vessels, and we get down to the level of the tiniest vessels, the capillaries, which are 1 cell layer thick. Every cell is in contact with at least one capillary, and that's where nutrients leave the blood and go into the cells. That's where oxygen leaves the blood and goes into the cells, and that's where carbon dioxide and waste products leave the cell and go into the blood for removal. Now, the other control system is the endocrine system. The endocrine is the chemical system. It is slower, but it has much longer legs. It will last, its impact can last for years. Whereas the nervous system is like once and done, instantaneous, immediate response, and then done, and then again and again and again. The endocrine system takes a little longer, but has longer lasting effects. Consider this: you eat an apple, or you eat a donut, or you eat a bowl of cereal, or you eat a sandwich. You ate something with carbohydrates in it. Your blood sugar goes up. It goes up past the point where we want it to be temporarily. So our body responds by releasing insulin out of our pancreas. Insulin allows our cells to absorb the sugar. That brings our blood sugar back down. That is a normal endocrine response. The pancreas is an endocrine gland. It releases insulin. Insulin is a hormone. That's what we call them. They're chemical messengers. And it tells the cells to open up more passageways for sugar to come into the cells. Okay, so we suck up the sugar out of our blood and we're back where we belong. Our blood sugar isn't too high. So it takes about half an hour. Not instantaneous, but fairly quick. Other long, even longer duration. For example, the ovary and testes, the gonads, if you will, the ovaries produce estrogen. Estrogen levels start rising rapidly in females at the onset of puberty, 10, 11, 12 years old. And they will stay elevated for the next 40 years. They will stimulate bone growth. They bring on the onset of all the secondary sex characteristics. And then at the end of the ovary's functional life, it shuts down, and the female goes into menopause, and so no longer has the benefit of the estrogen present. Okay, that's 40 years of the presence of estrogen functioning there. So that's a long duration effect by the endocrine system. In the male, in the testes, the male starts releasing testosterone at the onset of puberty and will continue releasing testosterone for the next 80 or 90 years, or even 100 years. The levels will gradually tail off as they get older and older and older. However, they're still secreting testosterone from the onset of puberty to the day they die. And that could be an additional 80 years or 90 years, depending on when puberty started. Long-term duration. The endocrine system consists of the pineal gland. Pineal gland is a little dangly gland that hangs down at the base of the cerebral hemispheres, the big two lobes of the brain, controls our day and night cycles. It releases a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin levels rise at night and drop during the day. So you get sleepy at night when you release lots of melatonin. How do you know? Well, you depend on the visual cues from your eyes. When it starts getting dark, your pineal gland releases melatonin and you get sleepy. During the day, visual cues say, hey, it's bright outside. So melatonin levels drop. This is all well and good unless you're working shift work. Working you go from first shift to third shift, you're working and it's dark outside. And your pineal gland says, hey, I'm functioning, I'm producing lots of melatonin. You should be getting sleepy. And your brain's saying, wait a minute, I'm working. Then when you get home, when you get off work at 7 in the morning, you go home and try to get some sleep. It's light outside. And your pineal gland says, hey, it's time to be awake, get up and about and do stuff. So it does become a challenge as if you're transitioning from shift to shift, rapidly. Pituitary gland is the master gland in the body. It releases 8 different hormones that control other glands, release other hormones. It's located in the brain. The thyroid gland sits in the middle of our neck. It controls our metabolic activity. The thymus gland, at our age, it's about the size of our little finger, but it was very large. When we were infants, it went all the way down and almost covered the heart. It doesn't do anything now, but what it did was white blood cells, when we were infants, would migrate to the thymus gland and learn to become immunocompetent. They would be able to identify every cell in the body by chemical markers on the cells. So they knew what every cell type in our body would look like. Essentially, they were trained so that if a foreign substance showed up in the body, bacteria, virus, fungus, transplanted tissue, if you will, they would recognize that and attack. We call those white cells T cells because they matured in the thymus gland. The other type of white cell that matured in the bone marrow, we call them B cells. So the lymphocytes are our infection fighters, T cells and B cells. The adrenal gland sits on top of our kidneys. Our kidneys are only 3 inches long, and the adrenal gland is only about an inch in height and about 2 inches across. We use the adrenal gland to control both fluid levels in our bodies and our response in what we call a fight or flight emergency. The adrenal glands produce hormones that used to be called adrenaline, Now we call them more appropriately epinephrine and norepinephrine. If you've ever seen an EpiPen or have an epinephrine inhaler, then you are using what would have been termed 40 years ago adrenaline. The chemicals coming out of these glands, we call them hormones. We call them chemical messengers or hormones. And they are responsible for growth. Growth hormone gets released at puberty, the onset of puberty, and stimulates bone growth and enlargement of muscle cells and all the characteristic body changes at puberty as we reach our adult stature. We see the development of the secondary sex characteristics thanks to the presence of the sex hormones, and we see our metabolic rate being controlled throughout our lifetime thanks to these hormones too. Lymphatic system is a parallel circulatory system. Lymphatic system is a series of vessels that run right beside our blood vessels to collect water. Lymphatic system is part of our immune system. See, our blood vessels, let me back up. Our blood is about 50% water, 55%, 45%, somewhere in that neighborhood, salt water. Our blood vessels are leaky. Our blood vessels have lots of little holes in them, and water leaks out. And when it leaks out, it collects around the cells. That's what it's supposed to do. It's found on the outside of the cells. We call it interstitial fluid. And it floats around there, around the outside of the cells, and then eventually is recovered by these lymphatic vessels. And that brings it back to the blood. But before it does that, it runs it through our lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are where white blood cells tend to hang out, look for things to kill. That's what they do. They kill pathogens. And who hasn't been to your doctor and had them palpate your neck when you've had a sore throat and say, oh, your glands are swollen? I'm not talking about your lymph nodes. We have big clusters of lymph nodes at our neck and in our axillary region and in the inguinal region at the groin. Glands are swollen. They're fighting infections. If you ever had inflamed tonsils, that's what they're doing. They're fighting an infection. And they're part of, our lymphatic system is designed to monitor the interstitial fluid for pathogens and then kill them because they detect it. And so we have the lymph nodes, the vessels, the thymus gland, we mentioned that, the spleen, and our bone marrow. All of this is part of the lymphatic system. Respiratory system starts with the nasal cavity. Then we have the pharynx, that's the throat, the trachea, the airway, the bronchi, and the lungs. The whole purpose of the respiratory system is air exchange. Get rid of oxygen, get rid of CO2 and pick up oxygen. Blowing off CO2 is just as important as bringing in oxygen. Our digestive system, designed to break down the nutrients that we consume into carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and incorporate them into the body. Proteins to build up new proteins in the body, fats to store for energy, carbohydrates for short-term energy, and to get rid of the stuff we can't process, fibers and things like that. Take food in, break it down, absorb the nutrients, release the waste products. Urinary system, designed to regulate our fluid levels. We have the paired kidneys. Leading from each kidney, we have a ureter, leading to the urinary bladder, where we collect the urine, and we release the waste products through the urethra. We get rid of about 1.5 liters of water every day, filled with nitrogen-based waste, urea and uric acid and stuff like that. We regulate our water levels. We regulate our salt levels. We regulate our pH here. We get rid of toxins. If the kidneys fail, generally death will occur within 48 hours because the toxins will accumulate unless dialysis, unless you take the patient through dialysis. But if the kidneys fail, then your patient will be dead in 2 days. It's sort of a rule of thumb on that. I mean, 48-hour clock is running at that point. Now, I turned this slide out here because, well, it's a neat slide to begin with, but the digestive system doesn't like to take in things we can't process. There's a couple of things about this that we see here. First of all, we see 87 nails in the digestive system. Now, it does outline the stomach very nice. This curve right here shows that this is the stomach, right? Because I happen to know that that's where the stomach's located. Yeah, sort of a J-shaped, curvy structure on the left-hand side. Well, that's where the stomach is. So you have a whole cluster of really large nails right in here. Now, down here in the large intestine, we can see even more nails. So, and without even begging the question of why, we're not going to go into that. But what do we see here? Well, we see that we can barely see any organ structures. Well, that's because soft tissue doesn't show up well on X-ray. This is an X-ray. Our digestive system is soft tissue all the way through, and we like to process carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. We don't need to eat nails to get iron and other minerals in here. So we use an X-ray to, this person presented with this problem. An X-ray is ideal because it shows up materials like bones. You can see the hip bones there. You can see the vertebrae. Just start to see the ribs showing up here. Bone absorbs and reflects X-rays, whereas soft tissue allows the X-rays to go straight through. You can barely see anything. You can only see the this dark area here is the large intestine. They may have had a dye put in. Now, why X-ray if you can't see the soft tissue? Well, you wouldn't want to put this patient in an MRI, a magnetic resonance imagery machine, with nails in their body. That'd be really exciting, but very unpleasant. Probably messy too, unless the nails were aluminum. So that wouldn't work. And why? Sometimes simple is best. Simple X-ray shows you where the problem is. So, but again, the question is why? And you can see that these nails have gone all the way down in here. They may have some may have actually made it to the rectum and anus. So anyway, okay. So one of the things, let me say this about that picture. We prefer in healthcare non-invasive techniques. Anything that will allow us to examine a patient internally without involving surgery is ideal. The X-ray is the original non-invasive technique. We use the X-ray to we can see. We can't see soft tissue real well, but we can see bones. If you have a fracture, X-ray is the way to go. If you have a person that swallowed something or some things, X-ray is the way to go. It has its limitations, but it is the original non-invasive technique. We prefer non-invasive over more complicated. Whenever we always try to start simple and then work up. So, okay, I'm going to stop there, and we will pick up on organ systems on Thursday. If you are in lab today at 1 o'clock, I will see you then. And all the content material is found in eLearn for lab. Otherwise, I'm going to get us out of here because I need to get ready for lab. if you have any questions, just shoot me an email, please. And thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for putting up with that whole first part about how we're going to do the class. So, okay, I'll see you all later.